Our comment today is coming from Catherine Clark, who received her PhD in history at USC in 2012, and she's currently associate professor in French studies at MIT. Her book, which I had the pleasure of seeing this afternoon, just came out, Paris and the Cliché of History, The City and Photographs, 1860 to 1970. Her articles have appeared in the Journal of Visual Culture and the American Historical Review, and there are copious book chapters and some things that someone mentioned this morning that many of us never get to write, things like museum catalogs. And welcome, and we're going to make our time. And you need this.
And I'm going to cut my comments. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so thank you. Thanks, Vinny, for asking me to do the comment on this. And thank you all for watching at home. I'm sure there's a big audience. So I have comments. But I also think it's interesting to be standing here today talking about violence and masculinity and anti-Semitism. And so I think that I do want us to talk a little bit about how this moment becomes our moment, right? Because we talk so much about the roots of modernity are the 19th century, and media and travel and technology, all of these things that make our modern world, and the violence of colonial encounters. But could we add, you know, when I rattle off that list of what makes the modern world to my students, I don't often add in violent masculinity. And you know, and maybe I should. And so I think these papers are a good argument for why we should be. So that's my kind of first takeaway point from this paper, from this panel. We've gone to lots of places here. So we've gone to the Wild West, we've gone ballooning in North Africa, we've been to Switzerland for a duel that kind of happened. I went back because, you know, I write about photography. I do not write about masculinity, although I experience it all the time. So I went back to my bookshelf and reread some things that I hadn't read for a while as well in thinking about you all. And I think that I want to make three proposals and three things that we could think about. The first is that perhaps this panel title shouldn't have been about crossing borders, but about mobility, right? Because I think it's less about the borders that are crossed and more about the actual motion and circulation that's happening here. And Patrick, I really like this idea in your paper that only the aristocrat can indulge in slow time. You know, I really liked that, and so I think that's worth thinking about. The second thing I want us to think about a little bit is the idea of who are we talking about, right? So they're aristocrats, but then we're also talking about elites. So Vinny, you talked about elites. So when we think about Roosevelt, you know, what's the difference between an aristocrat and an elite? Liz, you talk about dueling as a bourgeois practice, even. And so when we think about these aristocrats, kind of, are we just talking about aristocrats, or are we talking about the wider practices that are being adopted? Also, when are these aristocrats French, and when are they not French? When are they just aristocrats, and when do they become French people? And I was thinking about the Marquis de Maurès in Montana. How much is his failure because he's an aristocrat, and how much is his failure because he's French, you know? And I thought about you when I drove across Montana in the summer of 2016, and I drove past Medora without stopping, and I did not, unfortunately, I looked in my photographs, I did not take a picture of Medora, but otherwise I would have a picture of Medora up here for you. Yeah, so next time I drive across Montana, which happens pretty regularly, so I will stop. So that's my second question, is about these categories. And then the third thing I want to talk about is this mediation of all of the events that you're talking about. And Liz, I think this comes in part from the end of your paper and thinking about the mediated sphere and the sphere of kind of physical presence in events. And you talk about kind of virtual reality and real reality. I'm not sure I would use those terms here, but thinking about where the performance of politics and where the performance of masculinity and where the performance of violence is happening. And so I want to hear more about the construction of those performances in the mediated sphere. kind of from all of you, and we don't have to do this now and here, but like Patrick, you know, who's reading La vie au grand air, or L'air aérosile, La rêve aérienne, right? So in part, these aristocratic identities are being produced not just by aristocrats who pen books, but by a whole publishing industry that's supporting these activities. Similarly, you know, with the press running after these aristocrats, obviously they're just as complicit in these kind of construction of violent identities. And so I wonder if to think about elites acting, if almost the way in which we've thought about these papers as being about aristocrats are giving them too much agency, right? That we're giving them too much agency in their own self-construction, but actually they're wrapped up in a much broader world that is producing their elite identities, sorry. And then I think just, I wrote this sentence, and I think that I want to read it because I didn't read any other sentences that I wrote for this comment. But I thought the thing that I wrote down first when I was thinking about this panel is that how do we get from this moment in the fin de siècle of masculinity in crisis, where it seems like somewhere else is where you're acting out freedom, adventure, and violent encounters, to our moment where it seems like the place where you're acting out your freedom, adventure, and violent encounters is the workplace, right, rather than the stratosphere. So I will leave you with that. Thanks. And we have 7 minutes for questions.
I guess first, does anyone want to respond to Catherine?
I think we should.
We should open it up, yeah.
A few
Yeah.
minutes.
And I can give another mic if someone wants to be.
I think they're all mic.
They're mic.
You're all mics? Oh, okay, and there's a mic from questions. Okay, great.
Oh, so overwhelmed by the violence.
Oh,
we
yeah,
had
just like-
to
Too much
have the
violence.
present
Let's just stop talking about men.
Yeah.
Question.
So I guess this isn't a question, but maybe sort of a comment on the silence, which is that there were very humorous moments in all of these papers, and yet the story is incredibly depressing and troubling and scary.
Oh yeah, the Annie Dreyfusides are
And I think
hilarious and
that
awful.
Sort of the question at the end that it seemed to gestured to that we are in the habit of thinking about
Yes. No, the language that is being used today is very old, and I don't think that's a surprise to anyone for us to say that.
I think all of us, when we're teaching, I was talking in one of my seminars last week about nationalism moving from the left to the right and carrying along anti-Semitism. And I also played the students a clip of Jean-Marie Le Pen talking about nationalism and patriotism. And my students just gasped because they said, oh, Trump just said this. And so we're in a moment where I think, and I've talked to all of you on this panel about this, about how we as historians have a role to play about having students make connections between what happened during the times that were historical time and now.
So, can I just say something too, which I think is interesting, that all the papers that we presented kind of made me think about this is all our papers deal a lot with failures. Nothing goes right,
Yeah.
it seems like. And the other day I was at a bookstore and I haven't read this book yet, but I was just trying to remember the name. There's this book called Heroic Failure and the British. And one thing that it made me think about is just how much failure in itself can be a reinforcing, failure in itself is a form of victory. In this performance of masculinity. It's all about how you deal with that failure in the end, right? But just because you don't succeed at something, you can still use that to feed into that culture.
Well, if you think about Renan, when he's talking about defeat and turning it into a moral victory, so the time period that we're talking about, it all fits in.
Yeah. I think there's also an element, it's an echo of kind of the lost cause mythology. It's that kind of thing. Certainly, I would say on the French extreme right, you can look back to, when I say that, Déroulède and Buffet and all of those returned and became living legends, they did. Someone like Charles Maurras picked up Buffet and said, okay, now Buffet, look at him, he is an icon. Look at Déroulède, he is an icon. They didn't mean anything. They weren't active in the same way, but all of a sudden they became heroes, despite their kind of loathsome political positions and their general failure to actually overthrow the Republic. But they inspired people who might go on to more seriously threaten it.
Well, also because their failure means that someone
Oh, yeah.
succeeded, right? And who succeeded are the countervailing
Yeah.
forces, right? So, that's part of why their failure can be seen as part
Yeah.
of their story.
And part of what is ridiculous and humorous that we laugh about is the ritualized
Oh my gosh.
seconds and all this stuff. And the fact that, as Nye says, most of these duels were not deadly. I mean, some of them
No.
were. And the Marquis de Mauvais shows
Yes.
that. But by and large, it was first blood, and then you went off to drink, and that was
Yeah.
it.
No, Morez's fatal duel was fairly rare.
It was.
And it was kind of considered almost that he had committed a faux pas in actually
Exactly.
killing, killing May.
Yeah.
Kind of a faux pas.
Yeah. A bit more.
I've spent a long time with these people.
Can I just ask about another parallel with the present moment, which I think comes through from all your writing, which is sort of the multi-platform mediatization, the way all of these players are, very shrewdly manipulating a bunch of different. It's really like it's the novelization, it's the it's the visualization, it's even and this is great for teaching because the telegram was the Twitter of 1890, and so it's but I mean I'm interested also in because there must be dissonances as well. When you were talking about failure, it seems like the great success is the way the story gets told, or how failure is treated. But I'm sure that there are. Have you found kind of moments where the media there are incoherences in the mediatization? Any of you?
In terms of mediatization, the one thing I did find that's interesting is looking at these colonial encounters with ballooning is that actual North Africans, or they do ballooning in Indochina too, they're not really that impressed with it. But that goes completely against the narrative that they're constructed in France, right? So there's that tension there that is obvious, but the French aren't getting that point of view. Like that's all in the colonial sources, the sources in the that are not the French-centric sources. So, but.
Yeah. No, I do see a great deal. The conflicts are, certainly during the Dreyfus affair, you really do see the emergence of two completely separate narratives in the Dreyfusard press and the anti-Dreyfusard press. But even within the two kind of blocks, there are disagreements and kind of factionalisms, and those for the anti-Dreyfusards, for the royalists and the nationalists and the conservatives and the anti-Semites, these do increase afterwards. So in 1901, you do have the royalist press thinks one thing, the nationalist press thinks the other. They do disagree quite a bit, and so all the different people involved, Déroulède and Buffet and Galli and Guérin, and all of them they're trying to shape the media narrative about themselves. They're also having to respond to what's being said about them, and so you get this very complex self-presentation, attempts at control, but which are ultimately really rather futile. There's only so much control you can exert over a mass press.
Yeah, I had the same experience with the Marquis de Maurras, where he's depicted one way in the anti-Semitic press and another way in the Maine press. But what's really interesting is when he gets killed, the establishment press, the Maine press, Republican press, also sees him as a hero, quand même.
Yeah, no, when Déroulède comes back, he actually, even the Republicans are kind of like, oh, it's Déroulède, he's a monument, look at him. He's so, he's okay.
Not good.
Fake news is not new.
Okay, well, thank you so much for reading him.